I always have fun at these because I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of enjoying it, and the song ends, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's me. I've got to go up and. So today is about us taking a journey together. Today is about each and every one of us taking a journey into that mystic realm that is our own consciousness, into that mystic presence of God that exists within each one of us. Now in unity, we call that mystical presence, that power of God, we call it the Christ. And so today is about finding the opportunity to give ourselves an experience of the Christ. That presence of God that we all are, that each one of us is a part of. And I know that many of us have had mystical experiences in our lives. We've had times when we felt that connection to something greater than ourselves that's also somehow a part of ourselves. And I don't know about you, the mistake I always make when I'm having that sort of experience is that I feel like it's something that I should be able to see, I should be able to touch or feel or hear. But the truth is, Christ isn't any of those things. The pure essence and presence of God, that presence of Christ, that's something you can only experience. So today, we get to have that experience. Today, we have the opportunity to really experience the power and the presence of God that we all are. The thing is that this experience has to begin with a commitment. We need each and every one of us to commit to together journeying into the mystic, into that mystic realm of our consciousness, and experiencing the true power of God that we are as we journey into the mystic. So before we flow into the mystic, let's just first agree on what it is that we're moving into. You see, this journey into this mystic realm of consciousness that we are, this journey is about wholly and fully realizing and admitting the truth that we are the presence of God. This journey isn't just about realizing that truth, but it's about acknowledging and accepting that that is the truth of what each of us is. The very truth of what it is that we're made up of is that we are God. We are the divine expression of God. The catch is we have to claim it. We have to realize it and claim it. And so that's what our journey into the mystic is about. It's about taking those opportunities to realize and affirm the very truth that I am the Christ, and I'm not separate from God. Those old beliefs that I had that told me that there was this God that was out here and that I had to beg for that God to notice me, that those just simply aren't true. That presence of God is right here within us. And it doesn't need us to beg. Now, this work of surrendering, this spiritual work of realizing the fullness of God that we are, I want you to very clearly understand me. This is not a magical formula. This is not something that we do to take a bad experience of life that we're having and turn it into a good experience of life. This is a process and a practice that we undertake to take our human sense of life, or to use the old unity languaging for it, to take that ego side of ourselves and to live a spiritual life. So it's not about trying to have a good experience of life, although just as a side note, that tends to be a side effect of connecting to that power and presence. Life tends to get better, but that's not the reason why we do this. You see, the reason why we begin this spiritual practice, this spiritual work, is because deep down within us, innate in our very core of our being, is this idea that we are part of something greater. And that we have within us this call to become and to really claim our inheritance as the divine children of God. And so that's what this work is about. It's about stepping forward and claiming the truth of what we are. That's what our journey today is about. is claiming the truth of God that we are and living from that place. Now, this is a journey that begins with prayer. It's a journey that begins by taking time in the stillness of meditation and the silence of meditation. It's a journey that begins with a prayer of surrender. That moment of prayer where we just can't think of what else to say other than, Lord, have mercy. So I love how these guys put this together. And at first, first of all, I look at these songs, I look at the lyrics, what they mean, and all of that. And I grew up in Unity, so I didn't grow up with the Catholic traditional religious upbringing that I knew what Kyrie eleison meant. So I looked it up. It means Lord have mercy, and it's a very, very old prayer, and it dates way, way back into early Christian tradition. And that song was actually written to be a prayer. Mr. intended that to be a prayer when they wrote it. So I know you had that idea when you planned this, but thank you for helping me out so much and making these things.
Anything I can do to help you out.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I do have that. I have Harper to keep me distracted. So I appreciate
I'm
all
going
of
to take
you.
all the credit for choosing all these songs.
Yeah. I'm going to move over here before the band starts throwing things at Fred. Actually, it occurs to me that this might be a good time to meditate now. So every time I start to do this spiritual work of surrender, this spiritual work of letting go and affirming the truth that the presence of God is there, I just have to acknowledge it and surrender to it. There's always a verse from the scripture that kind of rings out in my mind, and it's always kind of there. And I wanted to share it with you today, since it's what we were talking about. And this verse, it comes from the book of Revelation. And I know, that seems kind of odd. I mean, I see some of you out there going, really, Revelation? And so I thought about Revelation, especially as it pertained to this idea of Rock and Roll Sunday. And what I realized is that really the Christian scripture kind of follows some of our great musicians. I mean, you've got the sort of the love and the peace and the harmony that we saw in the Beatles and the bands of that era in the Gospel of John. And then you get into the letters of Paul, and you get into kind of some of the folk art and folk lessons that are in there. And so as I was thinking about this, what could Revelation be? And the only thing I could think of was Ozzy. So I think that works, though. I think especially later on, and so I thought it was a great way to get Ozzy Osbourne into Rock and Roll Sunday, since my plan to try and get them to play Mr. Crowley was rejected very early on. I was trying to get that intro from you there, Ken. So, but anyway, let's take a look at what we find in Revelation. And Revelation was written by John, not the same John of the Gospels, a completely different John. It was written well after that had happened. And this was a man who was in exile. He was exiled from the Roman Empire. He was living on an island of Patmos when he wrote this. But there's one particular line I want to share with you, and it's from Revelation 3, verse 20. And it says, "Listen, I am standing at the door knocking. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come into you and eat with you, and you with me." I am standing at the door knocking. And it was always significant to me who John had say this. John has the Christ say this. You see, when I was doing that sort of spiritual work of trying to surrender to that Christ presence, trying to invite the presence of God into my life, into my being, into my consciousness, I always remembered that particular phrase. And then what I would imagine was, and what I would picture was this presence of Christ. Not Jesus, but the spiritual presence of God that was standing at the door of my consciousness, my soul, and was knocking. And it was my reminder to say, come in. Come in. Come be a part of what I'm doing. Come be a part of everything that I am. Now, I don't know about you, but once I realized that was something I could do, once I realized that that I could invite this presence of God into my life and let that presence of God move in me, through me, as me, within me, to lead me to my place of greatest success. Well, that became the easy part. It was so easy for me to remember to just stop and take that moment and breathe and say, okay, the presence of God moves in me and through me. Brandon, step aside and allow the Christ to do its work within me. That was the easy part. The hard part was what comes after that, and that's getting myself out of the way and letting the Christ do what it's going to do within me. I struggle and struggle and struggle with that. You know, I can remember to let the Christ in, but then I kind of want to direct it. And I suspect I'm not alone in that. You know, I was thinking about it because it's so foreign to everything else we do. You know, I know as humans we possess great physical strength. I saw it just earlier this week when they moved this piano up onto the stage. We have great mental capabilities. We have a wonderful presence to figure that out, and that all comes from us, from our ability to direct those things. But this idea of connecting to the divinity within us is so very different. Because what we're connecting to is the divine intelligence of God. You know that thing that we refer to as the all-present, all-knowing power of God? This Christ that sees all, knows all, and helps guide and direct us? See, that's what we want to take within us, and then what do? We take that presence and then we try to tell it what we want. Because we know better than the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present God what it is that we want. Or what we should be doing is inviting the Christ within us and then allowing it to do its work within us, through us, as us. We have these big, lovely prayers that we say where we, oh God, please grant me the abundance that I know is mine. And instead of praying with words, what we should still be doing, or what we should simply be doing, is just being still and knowing that we are the presence of God. Instead of having our thoughts be our prayers and trying to inform and guide this presence within us to what we want, we simply should be still and allow the Christ within us to do its work through us. We allow the Christ to move in us and through us to bring us to places of healing from injuries both emotional and physical. We allow the Christ within us to wash clean those beliefs that we had within us that told us that we were separate from God. And we allow it to create the truth that we are the presence of God, the power of God within us. But we simply have to be still. We heard it in that song just a few moments ago. And the sweetest song was silence. There's a reason that it says in the scripture to be still and know, but we forget that. We think we need to direct and change and move what's going on around us to fit our needs instead of simply being still and knowing the truth that we are the presence of God. So I have some work for you to do, and I know it's Rock and Roll Sunday. We're supposed to have fun. I'm not supposed to tell you what to go out and do during your week. We're just supposed to have fun and be inspired. But I do have a little bit of homework for you to do. In your meditation time, when you're focusing on that presence of God within you, simply repeat that affirmation, I am light. Don't direct the presence of God, don't guide it, don't inform it, don't wish that it would do something for you. Simply affirm the truth, I am light. And surrender to the presence of God that's all around you. Understand that as you grow in your awareness of this presence of God, that light within you grows day by day. We affirm on a somewhat regular basis here this idea that God is there to simply work through us. In fact, we have several songs we sing about that, don't we, guys? You guys play them on a fairly a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I asked them earlier how many, and they just went, oh, it's a lot. But we affirm this every Sunday when we sing it. It's time for us to surrender into it. It's time for us to know the truth that the presence of God is available for us to use. We simply have to claim it. And so as we journey into the mystic, that journey begins within our consciousness. And if you truly want to live lives of success, lives that we thought weren't even possible, we have to begin by claiming the power that we are. So go out there and claim it. God bless you.